How y'all doing? It's been a soft month for content. Haven't really been doing a lot of lives, but we get a news report today from Shams Charania that the Toronto Raptors have rejected a trade from the Atlanta Hawks. What was the trade? DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, and future draft considerations. Now, I want to talk about these two players. Now, I did devote a live talking a little bit about AJ Griffin and Onyeka Okongwu, but I don't think I have fully expressed my thoughts on DeAndre Hunter. And I want to talk about not only this trade package, I want to talk about this Pascal SIakam situation because the Toronto Raptors, what's good, y'all? What's good? Yo, what's going on? The Toronto Raptors were in UCLA yesterday, and, the vibes are great. The vibes are back. Like, I don't know how you could be a Raptor fan and just not smile at this footage. It's great. It's great to see everybody connected. It's just great to see the young coaches, with these new ideas, working with OG on his dribble drive combinations. Just look at Jama's face there. We screen grabbed. The enthusiasm and energy is back in the building, right? But I'd be remiss if I did not say there was a person missing, right, from this. And that person has been missing from everything Raptors related for a while now. And that's Pascal SIakam. And that's not shade on Pascal. Obviously, he is the subject of trade rumors. He is the subject of trade talks, and he's been made aware of this. He knows this, and he's not exactly about to sit there and, kiss their butt. And, he doesn't want the same situation that happened with DeMar DeRozan, right? He's already prepared himself probably for his inevitable exit. Hang on one second. I got to turn my air purifier off. One sec. So the situation could get really, really bad for the Toronto Raptors very quickly, right? Because if he sours, he demands a trade, you really don't want this thing to get out of hand, right? So you're really hoping that, number one, he's going to play ball. Number two, you're going to play ball. And that both sides want the same thing, which is ultimately for Pascal SIakam to play basketball next year where he plans to spend the next 4 to 5 years of his career. And lost in all of this, just dump Pascal for nothing, is that Pascal Siakam's a hell of a player. And someone brought up this thing today where they said, hey, man, you can't just dump this guy for nothing. The Raptors need to demand the world for him. He's a better player than DeJounte Murray. Look what they got for DeJounte Murray. We need to demand that. Some considerations that need to be taken. DeJounte Murray was a younger player. That's first. DeJounte Murray is a cheaper player. That's second. DeJounte Murray had 2 years left on his contract. That's the third thing. And also, sometimes the market and economics on trades changes, right? Last summer, we saw Rudy Gobert go for what felt like 150 draft picks. That's not happening again this summer, right? Teams have been a little bit more cautious. And, there was a report today that Bradley Beal talking about, like, how am I going to get to the Suns? They're not trading Devin Booker. And then, he sees what he was traded for, which was basically nothing. So I think that it's worth noting that the price on stars is changing in the new CBA. And that's largely because there's tiers of stars. And if you're the Toronto Raptors, if you're a Raptor fan who wants to see Pascal go, it's probably because you believe that he's not the type of guy that you can build a team around, that he's not going to line up with Scotty's timeline. And if you're someone who is kind of scared about letting him go for nothing or very little, you're probably on the line of thinking of, I don't see anyone on this roster who can ever be as good as he is right now, and probably will be for the next couple of years. I think both sides have a point. So let's talk about first this trade package that the Atlanta Hawks are proposing. And I'll go through rationally what I like and don't like about both players and hopefully give you a little bit of insight from a very unbiased perspective. I promise you, like if you're a Hawks fan and you're tuning in, I promise I'm not about to underrate all your players. And if you're a Raptor fan, trust me, I'm not about to hype Pascal SIakam. And you know me, if you've been watching these lives, you know that I'm not going to be doing that for any player other than Christian Koloko, Jeff Doughton, and Scotty Barnes. So, all right, let's go first with DeAndre Hunter. And this is the part of the trade that I don't like. Now, Hawks fans have a delusional idea of who DeAndre Hunter is as a player. And I really want to stress this. He had a really good second year, right? He had a really good second year. He followed up a pretty lackluster first year where he's a top 5 pick, right? And he followed that up with a really, really good second year. And there was a lot of hope and a lot of optimism that this was like the 3-and-D prototype and he was going to be this amazing player and the improvement from year 1 to year 2. But I'll tell you, year 2 is where it all peaked for him in every single thing. And also year 2 is where it peaked for the Hawks. Now, if you're the Raptors and you're trading for him, yeah, he fits a mold and a prototype of a player that you have on your roster and you like it. You know, he's 25 years old. It totally lines up with OG and Scotty and Precious and Koloko. He kind of fits. He's not that like dissimilar, like in a sense, like in some senses from Pascal Siakam, except he's like 100 times worse. Um, he's not that expensive. Yeah, I mean, you could put that in there. He is technically a two-way player. He takes a lot more threes than Siakam, and he hits them at a higher clip. He's kind of been an average to slightly above average at times three-point shooter on decent volume. His shot quality is better than Siakam's. His load, creation, portability are not. He's not it. Okay. And I would very much argue, and Hawks fans probably disagree with this, that he is a liability at the contract that he has. If you look at his overall analytics, this beastly defender stuff, I'm sorry, it doesn't track. It doesn't check out. Okay. Just because you're a better defender than Trae Young does not mean you're a great defender. His role, yeah, it's hard on defense, and I get it. But, you know, if you compare what the Raptors already have in Scotty, Precious, OG, he's not better as a defender than those guys, in my opinion. He's not a better defender than Jakob Poeltl. He's not a better defender than Christian Koloko. He's definitely not a better defender than Otto Porter. So what exactly are you getting here? I'm not really sure. So I am, and here's his shot chart. This is his career shot chart. Okay. Really hot from the top, right? Above the break threes, kind of what we're hoping for Pascal Siakam to expand his game out into. It's in kind of league average from all over, right? There's a little bit of above average. There's nothing really overly below average. He's not great finishing in the paint. He doesn't really have much of a creation ability off the bounce. He doesn't really do anything for other people. He's kind of an overrated defender. And I mean, you know, the progression that you would hope for a player who's now just entering the first year now of his new contract. This is the value that the Hawks have gotten out of his rookie contract. Now, as I mentioned, that second year, 2020, 2021, that was solid. Like that's totally solid. That's a really good uptick. But you look at year 3 and year 4, and it just hasn't worked, right? There haven't been a lot of games played either. I think that's worth noting too. The Raptors have had, shout outs to my boy Skeets, who made a little bit of a, I don't know, kerfuffle over OG Anunoby's durability issues on the Yahoo podcast a couple of days ago. And I mean, I get it. You know, OG has lacked health at times, but my God, like for a team that has OG Anunoby and Otto Porter as the starting small forward and backup small forward, do you really want to compound this? Because there have been some injury and durability issues here as well. There's not a single season with over 68 games played. That's alarming for a player this young. So, okay, and then that aforementioned contract, right? I mean, yeah, in the new CBA, this is solid for a starter, right? But man, like, I don't know where this career arc is going. But if you want to just like check this for a second, there's exactly one season where he's been positive box plus minus, positive value of a replacement, and above league average barely in PER. and that was a year where he just shot really well. Like his true shooting percentage that year was 60%. I mean, it seems more like an absolute like outlier. And the fact that he only played 23 games that year makes it an extreme outlier, right? I mean, that's a massively small sample size. He's had good months, but I mean, the vast majority of his career from 22, he was already a pretty old rookie, up till 25 has been spent being, in my opinion, a below average starter, like a significantly below average starter who is being paid like he has some sort of upside of being an average to above average starter. And I think that that is a mistake. So I think he's overpaid. I don't think that this is necessarily, you definitely, he's obviously not the centerpiece in the trade, right? I get that. I understand that. But from my perspective, this is a liability of a contract. This is a liability of contract for the simple fact that I don't think he's worth that money over that term. And I think there's a reason the Hawks want to get rid of him. And if you are asking me to take on a liability for a player that I deem to be a top 20, top 25 player, like you better be giving me a hell of a lot more than AJ Griffin for me to swallow that pill. And that's where I really hate this offer if this is at least 90% of what is being reported, unless like future draft considerations means like 3 first-round picks. Like this is not enough. Now let's talk about the part of this trade that I do like, which is AJ Griffin. Now, I've already talked about this at length before. By the way, guys, this is a call-in show, so if you want to call in, you want to discuss this, you want to give me your take on this, I'm happy to have a discussion. All right. I love AJ Griffin. As the caption says, I love this dude. I think he's such a freaking good player. He has 3-level scorer potential. I think he's a bit of an underrated passer. I think his defense is not great. Obviously, it was always going to be a bit of a weakness for him, but I think he has the tools to be at least average to above average. Look, for everyone who is really excited about Grady Dick, in my opinion, I mean, this is a player who's exactly as old as Grady Dick. He came into the draft, I believe he was 18 years old. He was 19 last year. He's one of the youngest rookies in the NBA. And this is what he did as one of the youngest players in the best league in the world as a rookie with a pretty inconsistent role at times. So to me, this guy is freaking ace. Like he is a blue chip prospect. I know that sometimes, when guys fall outside the lottery, there's a bit of a, like, what are they really, and if you don't watch Hawks games, maybe you don't really understand the value of AJ Griffin, but he's a really good young player, man. Like this guy to me should have gone top 8 last year. He definitely should have gone top 8. I don't know who he would have gone over, but he had a much better rookie season, in my opinion, than Jaden Ivey. And as I'm going to show you in the next slide, he wasn't that far off from a guy who made a lot of waves as a rookie. So I want to compare, just briefly, Keegan Murray per 100 at 22 years old, by the way, who had a really good rookie season, and Kings fans are super excited about him, to AJ Griffin at 19. This is a head-to-head per 100, and I want you to just understand the Hawks were a freaking mess last year, okay? Their offense was dysfunctional. They swapped coaches. It was not an ideal environment. And if AJ Griffin had struggled hard last year, I don't think anyone would have said, oh, that's curtains on his career. Despite this, and despite not playing with Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox in like this amazing movement offense and being the 5th option all times, like despite that, he had, in my opinion, a slightly better per minute impact than Keegan Murray at 3 years younger. And Keegan was the 4th overall pick. All right. So, I mean, if you want me to sell you on him, there's the stack. Okay. Stack them next to each other, 1v1, right? I think you'll see pretty quickly these two prospects are almost identical across the board. Okay. They're like Keegan shot it just a little bit better, and AJ had a better shot quality. Neither of them got to the line very much. They both took a ton of threes. Keegan obviously took a historic number of threes. He broke the all-time rookie record for three-pointers made, but that's not because he's drastically better shooter. In my opinion, I think AJ's a better shooter. That's just my opinion, but I definitely think he's a better shooter. In terms of portability, they're both good. I mean, their passer rating, I think, AJ's got like a little bit more shiftiness to his game. The fact that he's 3 years younger, neither of these guys are great defenders. I think they're both capable of being average I think they're both capable of being average defenders. They both have plus positional size. AJ has like a near 7-foot wingspan. I think there's a lot to like about him. Okay. So that all being said, I polled our followers, right? I polled our followers on Pensare Basketball Instagram, and I asked them, like, what makes this deal work? And it seems like everything that Raptor fans want, at least the followers that we have, comes around to Kobe Buffkin. And since I took this screenshot, this has only further intensified in favor of more Kobe Buffkin. Okay. So the leading thing was add Kobe Buffkin, and then the second leading result was add Kobe and a pick. Would that be enough? On paper, no. But in context, yes. Okay. Now, I wanted Onyeka Okongwu very badly. And then someone who covers the Hawks reached out to me via DM on Twitter, and they just gave me the straight dope about how the Hawks feel about him. And I was like, oh shit, they actually know what they have in him. Okay, moving on. The Hawks front office believes in Onyeka Okongwu the way that the Raptors front office believes in OG. Like, it's probably a non-starter. I don't know if they would do Onyeka for Pascal 1-for-1. I don't know if they would do it 1-for-1. Maybe they would do it 1-for-1, but the salaries would just never match. You would have to add so much more to it. So they also believe in AJ Griffin a lot, and for good reason. So they, from their perspective, are giving you something that they substantially value. From the Raptors' perspective, however, this has to be more. Now, are the Raptors in a position to actually bargain, haggle? What is the market for Pascal Siakam? Has he sort of tanked his value a little bit by sort of just letting people know that he wants to be in Toronto? He doesn't want to get traded. What was the purpose of that entirely? Does he actually want to be in Toronto? Does he really want to be in a situation? Does anyone want to be in a situation where you're the franchise player and you don't feel wanted? I don't think so. So would he welcome a trade? Sure, but maybe he's scaring teams off because there is a perfect situation that is setting up right now for him to make All-NBA as the Raptors absolutely surprise people. And look, just a shameless plug. It's not a plug, really, just a random side note. I just placed like more money than I have ever placed on an NBA future in my life for Darko for Coach of the Year. I think this team is going to surprise people in a really major way. Now, if Pascal Siakam is traded, that really does change the outlook for me in terms of what is coming back. But I still think they're going to be a lot better. And I think a lot of the pieces on this team are being massively underrated. And that has been my stance and will remain my stance until further notice. That being said, the Raptors don't have their pick next year. So there's so many competing conflicts and so many competing issues and potential problems that could come down the line. So you play this out, as the Raptors have become quite infamous for waiting and evaluating. Okay, you play this out and it's not working. The team is losing. Siakam's not happy. You haven't signed an extension. There's like some rumors or murmurs from his camp that he may want to test his, mark. Oh my God. Well, now you are suddenly staring down the barrel and his value has dropped even more. And I'm sure that rival general managers are pitching this doomsday prophecy to the Raptors every single time they have a conversation. Can you afford to let this guy walk? The Raptors internally probably have a better pulse on whether or not they can sign him or not. From all accounts, how is this the pitch if the whole thing is, oh, the Raptors haven't offered him? Now, the question then becomes, if he's so great, why are you trying to get rid of him? That's a question too, right? Where did this entire narrative on Pascal Siakam change, right? I'm so curious. Every time I talk to someone in the Toronto media space, they very carefully forget that for the first 7, 10, 12, 15, 20, it was like a first quarter of the season, 22 to 25. Shoot, no, it was half the season. Let's not gaslight ourselves here. This was at least 35 games in. We were still talking about Pascal Siakam as a soft MVP candidate. We still talking about his All-NBA. How many first options do you think there are in the NBA? Where did this entire, notion of Pascal is definitely a number two? I've even heard someone say the other day, well, if he's your number three, you're definitely going to win a championship. Like, how bad a season did he have for it to fall apart so badly? Do you know what I mean? Like, how did it go from this is a guy who can't lead a team to, like, is it what happened in the playing game? Is it because the Raptors missed the playoffs? Is it, because his numbers dipped towards the end of the season? So many thoughts in terms of that. He's certainly not as good as people said he was early in the season. But I don't think he's as bad as people think he is now. It's funny how that happens, right? That you become overrated, people overrate you, and then you become underrated. I think that's kind of what happened to Scotty Barnes too, right? Maybe after year one, people were like, "Oh wow, next season he's going to be Kawhi," and then he has a bit of a setback, and now he's a bum and he should be traded. People react in extreme polarity. I don't think Pascal Siakam is a worse player than DeJounte Murray. That might be a hot take for some people. He's not. Okay. He's a very capable player. He's a very good player. If he's your number one option, you're going to have to put a lot around him to make that work. But I don't think he can't be a number one option. My entire take last year was that he can't be a top 5 player. I don't think if Pascal Siakam is your leading scorer that you're in trouble. Like, a lot of teams are in trouble. If Jaylen Brown's your first scorer, you're in trouble. Like, what does that mean? He just signed a $300 million contract. You think Pascal Siakam and Jaylen Brown are poles apart? They're not. Like, I am just saying this as a very big fan of Jaylen Brown. They're not that far apart. So I think the Raptors probably are confused as to where the value for Siakam went down so much. But the Raptors have to make a decision on this. Play the two sides. Sign him. Worry about trading him later. I would prefer this outcome as opposed to doing whatever the hell. Because look, man, I'm tracking this guy's offseason so far. He looks like he's got a point to prove. And he's an insanely hard worker. So this idea that he's just going to fall off a cliff next year, I think it's a little bit overblown. If the Raptors sign him to an extension, he now has 4 years plus on his year. So it's 5 years. Even if the contract is a little bit rich, provided he does not fall off a cliff, even if he replicates last year completely and the Raptors surprise a little bit, maybe the narrative changes about what type of player he is. Because now he is like the perspective flips. You know what I mean? Like maybe Darko can do some stuff for him. Everything we talk about with Scotty Barnes about like, oh, wow, he's really going to benefit with more shooters. Well, guess what? So will Pascal. Playing with Jakob helps everybody. Playing with playing with Grady, playing with Gary, playing with a better OG, playing with depth, not having to, push yourself for 37 and a half minutes a night. Having hopefully a better Scotty Barnes to close out some of those possessions for you and take some pressure off of you, having a coach who can creatively use you in ways where you can actually get easier baskets. Maybe all of this can change the perspective that people have, because if you're reading the room right now, it doesn't seem like the league is overly high on the concept of Pascal Siakam as a max guy. And that, to me, in a league where Bradley Beal is a max guy, and, this is wild to me that this is even a debate. Now, let's flip it. Let's play the devil's advocate side. Why would the Raptors not want to extend Pascal Siakam? Well, the argument is simply two-pronged. And there's only, let's say three-pronged. There's 3 arguments. Number one, it doesn't quite line up with a realistic window to compete for anything. That makes perfect sense. You're not going to be very good until Grady, Scotty, these guys take their next step. Their next step probably does not unlock a very large window for you to compete with whatever you believe is Pascal Siakam's prime. So why not do yourself a favor, do him a favor, let him compete in his prime while you rebuild? Perfect. Step number 2, not exactly an ideal fit, right? Next to Scotty Barnes, it's never quite been an ideal fit. I mean, I could see it working. Both players can adjust a little bit, provided the other 3 guys work. But it is a little bit difficult to put three players around those guys, especially with Jakob Poeltl now in the middle. The third thing is you don't necessarily buy him as a leader. Okay. You don't, you went through last year with a lot of stat padding. Maybe you have some trepidations or some doubts about repeating history again. Maybe there's a fourth one too. And that's worth noting, which is you definitely don't want to lose him for nothing next offseason. So I think those are the four claims against not keeping him and trading him right now. Okay. Stand pat, I need an extension. If I don't get an extension, I got to trade him. Okay. It's a non-starter, no brainer, no questions asked. I would trade him for this package, even as bad as it is. And partially, I would do that because I don't have the nerves of steel of Masai Ujiri. I don't have the nerves to wait out October, November to see if another team gets desperate, because chances are maybe the team doesn't get desperate. And now you're stuck holding the bag on a player that doesn't have an extension, who can realistically walk for absolutely nothing, and or is hijacking your season to gun for all NBA because he's already checked out mentally, and he knows that you tried to trade him, and it's a business for him, and this is not like, trust me, no matter what happens with Pascal SIakam, this is not going to become a Pascal SIakam witch hunt season for me. I suspect that it's very difficult for one person by themselves to hijack an offense. Like, it was easier last year, I think, with Fred, Nick, him, like Gary at times. Like, there's a lot of guys who, OG, as much as I love OG, there were times where I think like he also became frustrated with his role and kind of went like a little bit too far to the other extreme. I think it's difficult to do that when you're the only person who wants to do that, but yeah, like when you're losing, why wouldn't you, right? So what would I need from the Atlanta Hawks to make this deal work? Well, honestly, at the bare minimum, I would really like Kobe Buffkin. I don't really care too much about the picks. I don't care too much about the picks. They have their pick next year. They have Sacramento Kings pick next year. Unless, of course, you think what the Sacramento Kings did last year was a fluke. That pick is not going to be very good. The draft is absolutely terrible. I mean, seriously, like a top 5 pick next year is probably a late lottery pick or a mid first rounder in most years. So I don't want to think about what a 20th overall pick is going to be next year. Probably overpaid. Okay. So I don't have any interest in 2024 picks. I might have an interest in the 2027 pick, but not enough necessarily to move off of demanding Kobe Buffkin. I would really want Kobe Buffkin in this deal. Now, where does Kobe fit in? Honestly, I think he fits in really well. Dennis Schroeder is not a long-term solution for this team. Be a great learning year for Kobe Buffkin to be that's effectively curtains on Jeff Doughton's career as a Toronto Raptor. But I think he is a dynamic guard. He's shifty. He finishes well in the paint. I think that he could be a really big part of this thing that the Raptors are doing in terms of, rebuilding this roster. And I think that it gives you an edge in terms of a young core. AJ Griffin and Kobe Buffkin coming in is in my opinion, significant haul. And because both players went 15th and 16th overall in the back-to-back drafts, maybe some people won't look at it the way that they would look at trading for someone like a Cade Cunningham or Evan Mobley. And I'm not suggesting that they have necessarily that level of star power, upside, etc. But I do think that at their worst, both guys project to be solid starters. And if you can get those guys early enough, especially with coaches like Jama Mashalela and Darko Rakovic here, who are prioritizing development, like what could you potentially do? Well, I think what you could potentially do is build We the North Part 2, around Scotty and Kobe and Grady and Precious and Koloko. Like, I think it would be really fun to watch. Yeah, you're probably not going to win as many games. But you could surprise. Young teams have surprised before. There's a little bit of veteran presence on this team. There's a couple of older guys. And what would a successful season for a team like that even look like without Pascal Siakam? Honestly, maybe successful is just finishing 10th. He does make a difference, honestly. His isolation scoring would be very much missed. But anyways, I digress. All right, we do have a caller, Coach Mo. Let's bring him on. Coach, what up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
So I agree with you 100%. You either have to trade him or extend him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can have the circus of what are they going to do with Siakam, trade deadline, all that. Like, you can't relive what happened last year.
Agreed.
Like, I mean, going into last summer, worst case scenario, we had a horrible season. We lost Fred for nothing. We're lucky Gary picked up his option. We could have lost him for nothing.
That's true.
Um, and like you said, if you roll the dice and the season is not going well, he's not getting along with the coach or whatever, right?
Mhm.
He's gunning for all NBA, and the selfish basketball kind of bleeds into this season, right? Because he saw what Jaylen Brown got, and he should rightfully think I'm better than Jaylen Brown. So
He's older than Jaylen Brown.
he is
He
older
doesn't
than
he
Jaylen
doesn't
Brown.
have the marketing that Jaylen Brown does. I'm
No,
realizing a lot of this does come down to marketing.
it does.
Like,
Yeah, Jaylen Brown's one of the most overrated players in the league, but and you can lose him for nothing, right? And imagine negotiating Siakam at the trade deadline, right?
it could get
It's
really
like,
bad.
my God, now you're not getting AJ Griffin.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, right? Like if you're Masai Ujiri, you've been batting 100 your whole life, and this entire like 3-4 year stretch where prospects aren't working out and everything's just not working out for you, and you're losing players for nothing, and Fred's leaving, and but it's one thing when Kawhi leaves because you got a championship out of it. It's another thing when Kyle leaves because you at least got a sign and trade out of it, and we can still argue what the value of Precious Achiuwa is, but he was an old player. It's another thing when Fred VanVleet leaves because you get like the generational offer of a lifetime. It's a total fluke. Ime Udoka just falls in love with this idea of Fred VanVleet, and you can't compete with that offer, so you lose him for nothing. And to be honest, like, just really not a franchise player, not an all-star. I don't care how many all-star teams he made, one team, whatever. It was like a half season that he played like an all-star.
Yeah,
he's not an all-star.
He'll never.
But this is an all-star, and
Yes.
in his prime, and you cannot lose that for nothing. And I fully feel that fear, and I'm just like, this is why maybe I have some work to do as a human being if I were to ever like want to be a general manager, because I don't think I would have the nerves to sweat this out the way Masai does.
Yeah, but like this summer, it's not even like he's around the team or he's like there's
Can you
no
blame him?
documentation that he's even communicating with the team, the coach. He's not with the team, and we already know like you're not you're not getting intangibles from him. You're not like getting leadership from him, right? Besides work ethic, right? He already doesn't fit with Scotty anyway, and he doesn't fit the timeline of the younger guys. So it's like going into this season with him as an expiring after what happened last year, you can't do that. You can't. And if you're doing that, you're basically banking that everything wrong with this team was Nurse and Fred, basically.
Yeah, but I think he's part of it. I really do. I mean, I listen to him talk sometimes, and I'm just like, if this guy is like, if he's your leader, like, your team is going to struggle.
Yeah,
You need
He just
something
sits there. He just
like,
sits
you need a personality
He's a
that
statue.
is on, like, you need a personality that is on par with him as a player. Like, if you had a Damian Lillard, Pascal Siakam pairing, and Dame just takes over as alpha, totally going to work great. And
He's
if
like the
you're a
Anthony
Portland
Davis
Trailblazer,
type of leader. He's like the Anthony Davis type of leader, just not nearly as good. Like
not even
Anthony
close.
Davis doesn't
Yeah.
lead necessarily. He's just really
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Like, some guys, they don't have that desire to lead. They don't have the interest. They don't have the talent to do it. They do it their way, and that's like, it's not for everybody. Leadership is not for everybody. I mean, Greg Popovich infamously called out Kawhi Leonard for his lack of leadership. He said,
Yeah.
that wasn't really his deal. It was more like Manu and Patty. Well, I mean, you look at Manu Ginobili and Patty Mills now. They've been leaders at every step. You don't wait. Like, the red flags for me went off when they came into training camp last season or the year before last season, and they started talking about how, like, they had to wait for Kyle to lead. And I'm just like, bro, leaders don't wait to lead. They just lead. So this concept of like, oh, well, he was here, so we couldn't, or I couldn't, is baffling to me. That's not leadership. So that's not to say that someone like Pascal Siakam cannot be your leading scorer and you cannot be like a 60-win team. You absolutely can be, and you have been. I mean, you've been a borderline 60 win team. The year that the season got shut down, on pace for a 60 win season that year. It was the best. It was the best season in Raptors history, or at least the second best season, regular season. He was your leading scorer. He was your number one guy. He was your leading option. So, and he's only gotten better since then. So, I mean, put some spacing around this guy and stop running him 37 minutes. I mean, some team out there is going to get like a really big season from him next year. And if it's the Raptors, like, extend him, because if he puts up that big season, that market value is just going to go up and up. And, hey, I wouldn't put it past him to take another step. He could take a slight other step, with shooting.
If he says, no, I'm not going to sign an extension, do you just trade him for what you can get from him?
Yeah, I would.
Like, I agree with you when you said, if the options are have him play on expiring or just take the offer that is reported, I take the offer that was reported. Because Fred left for nothing. And that's Lowry for Achua, basically. Gasol for nothing, Ibaka for nothing, Fred for nothing. It's like, holy crap. At this point, our luck is so bad, you do not gamble again on the best asset of them all. I'm not rolling those dice again.
Yeah.
Because he walks free, if he leaves for nothing, now we're at fireable territory.
I don't think Masai's ever getting fired, man. I don't think Masai's ever getting fired.
Yeah,
like, I think he could
right.
He would have to do something criminal to get fired.
I know you love I know you love Masai. We all are losing, like, what he was 3 years ago and to today, it's not even the same. What have they done since the championship? Like a trade noteworthy besides picking Scotty? Like, they just sat on their laurels. They've done nothing. Like, realistically, what have they done besides draft where they could? Like, there's nothing of noteworthy that they've done. Nothing proactive.
How many general managers in this league would have picked Jalen Suggs number 4?
I'm saying remove Scotty, because what they did there was they strategically tanked like 3/4 through Tampa. And
that's fair.
I give them all the respect
and they lucked out because they fell from 7th to 4th, right? And they rose up in that draft lottery. So they got a little bit lucky.
Yeah, and this year, instead of saying, you know what, we drafted a rookie of the year because we pivoted after a season went down the drain. This year, instead of doing that, the same playbook, you're at the trade deadline, you have like the 6th best odds. And it's like, no. We're not going to do what worked for us last time. We're just going to bash our heads against this wall.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
So we as fans see what the team did do, but what we don't see is what the team didn't do, right? I mean, we can hypothesize what they didn't do. And we can always see what they didn't do in terms of like, oh, they didn't tank. Oh, they didn't draft this guy that I liked, and this guy turned out great. They didn't draft Desmond Bane. Right, they didn't draft.
I'm not upset at any of that. I'm not talking about any of that. Besides the Scotty pick, I mean, even the Scotty pick, anybody could have done the job they did. It was just sit on your hands.
I don't think so. So
what did they do besides sit on their hands?
Okay,
besides the Scotty pick, seriously.
All right, so here's the devil's advocate part.
Okay.
What we don't see is the deals that they don't make. So, for instance, right, like,
I didn't get into a car accident, so that's I should get an applause.
No, I'm saying, like, let's say you have the 4th pick and you're thinking about Scotty Barnes. Do you know how many offers they probably had on the table that they had to weigh out? How many veterans? How many guys that it was like, okay, we could run it back. Not signing Lowry to that $30 million a year deal. He hasn't been worth that for 1 second of that deal. Now, I guarantee you, yes, like in a game. In a series, yes, he's worth it. But over the long haul, has he been worth $90 million or $85 million? Hell no, not even close. He's not playing the number of games.
What about his mentorship for Scotty? What would that have been valued at if he was
not 90 million? I'll tell you that. I mean, you think the Raptors going into the luxury tax? I mean, we were almost like right up. We were almost capped last year. So you think like you add Kyle Lowry to it. Who do you not have on the team? You don't have Chris Boucher. You don't have Otto. I mean, granted, Otto didn't work out for you. You probably don't have a lot. Okay, like it would make signing OG or Gary like completely impossible. It would make trading for Jakob impossible. Like there's so many complications of having $30 million of like old man Kyle Lowry on your roster. Not signing Marc Gasol, not signing Serge Ibaka. Did Serge Ibaka prove to be valuable at his next stop? No. So this is like, it's like I always beat myself up for selling Tesla stock at for not buying Tesla stock at $30, right? There was like this one time where I was tracking it. I went to my cousin's wedding, it blew up, and then I came back and I kept waiting for it to fall, and it never fell. And then now it's like thousands of dollars relative to where it was. And I always beat myself up for that. And I remember selling Amazon stock at $200 and $280, and then I look at Amazon stock now and I'm just like, oh my God, did I know what I was even sitting on back then? I beat myself up about those things, but there's so many companies that I didn't buy into that were terrible investments, and I never think about those. But you do have to think about those, because every single day there's 1,000 things that you could do with that day, and you might do only 5 of those things. And if one of those things is bad, like signing Stanley Johnson or signing Aaron Baines, you're like, shit, I fucked up. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things you could have done with that 4th overall pick that you didn't do, and you picked Scotty Barnes. You could have extended Marc Gasol when he was washed. You could have, signed Serge Ibaka, and he probably would have taken a lot more money because of what he meant to you because of the championship. And they chose not to. They pivoted off of guys that they won championships with, that they cared about. They could have held on to DeMar. I mean, granted, that's part of after the championship. Fine. You've asked for that. They picked Grady Dick. I think this is a solid move. Mm-hmm. They picked Christian Koloko. I think he's amazing. They asked for Precious Achiuwa back in that deal for Kyle Lowry, and jury's still out on what he will become. But I think
I think it's a
good
position.
It's a good idea, right? And look, like, I mean, you gotta see it from the broader picture too. Like, I think they have been trendsetters in so many ways, not completely trendsetters, but knowing to shift away from, and I mean, even the Fred VanVleet thing.
They wanted him back.
Bro, that's the outward thing. And that's where I say we have to press a little bit of pause on what is accepted, because it's not a leaky organization, right? We agree with that. There's not an organization that comes out and defends themselves. If you have a negative opinion, or if Doug Smith or some of these guys release like, oh, Scotty Barnes is a hard worker, not a hard worker. It's not like Masai goes onto the podium and starts like being like, he is a hard worker, we love him. Like, they don't do damage control too well, right? So if there is this rumor that, oh, they wanted Fred VanVleet back, well, obviously they didn't. I mean, in instance, price. I don't think they wanted him back at anything close to that price. I think the Rockets outbid themselves, and I think the Raptors helped them do it.
We should thank the Rockets from saving us from ourselves.
I think we should thank Fred VanVleet. I think we should thank Fred VanVleet for playing ball, because I think here's sort of just my conspiracy theory on this. I think the Raptors walked in with an idea that they were willing to pay $30 million to retain the asset, and beyond that, maybe 32, and they were going to give him 3 years and maybe partially guarantee a 4th year, but that they had some reasonable concerns about paying an undersized guard past the age of 33. And I think that they've kind of shown this with Kyle Lowry as well. Right? They didn't want to extend him past 33. Like, there was like a 33, there's a cutoff, like 33, 34, and then he was gone, right? I think that they held firm on that. So why did the Rockets outbid themselves? Well, they wanted term. They wanted a 2-year +1, so they had to pay so much money, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you believe that Fred VanVleet is going to be toast after 2 years, and I think that there's some reason to believe that his next contract is not going to look anything close to $25 million. I think he's going to be a mid-level guy after this, right? That's just my opinion. Maybe he outperforms. He's not going to outperform this contract in a million years, but maybe he does just enough as a leader to rehab his brand. Maybe he becomes more efficient. Maybe Ime Udoka makes him a better veteran leader. And maybe someone out there sees him as worth $25 million. My point is, the days of anything close to max contract are done after this. So he takes 2 years. If the Raptors' competing offer was 3 years, right, plus a 4th, which has been rumored, then he took less money guaranteed if that 3rd year is a team option, which they will definitely not. But there's a tax rate. So I genuinely think the Raptors offer for the Rockets offer, unless the Rockets are absolutely idiots, which is possible that they are. They actually are. Like, I'm convinced that
Yeah, yeah.
Raphael Stone is really stupid. But if they are, if we are to believe that the Raptors offer for Fred VanVleet was 30 million, 3 years, that's 90 million guaranteed.
And he got like 84 for 2 guaranteed.
Right. Then the
That's
Rockets sincerely outbid themselves by a
yeah.
lot. So now I'm wondering, did the Raptors offer the 3 years, 90?
But if you weren't willing to go on a bidding war for Fred, you should have just got what you could for him. And now this is
I
hindsight
don't.
at the trade deadline.
Okay, let's say one thing doesn't happen. Okay, and this is where I say force majeure. You know, like that thing in a contract that protects you against floods and fire. Okay, one thing doesn't happen. This is the game that I play. One thing doesn't happen, and could you have seen it happening? Ime Udoka was supposed to be the Raptors' next coach. I don't know how many people I heard this from going into the season, off season, but it was supposed to happen. It didn't happen for whatever reason. Maybe something happened in the conversations that they had, and then they had to shift and pivot. And you can tell from the fact that they fired Nick Nurse, and then they took like a whole 2 months to hire the next guy.
Yeah.
I think Ime was their target, and then when he signed with the Rockets, maybe they gave him more money. Maybe there was something about the Raptors job that just didn't appeal to him. Maybe he knew that Pascal Siakam was being shopped, and he just didn't want to be part of that. But that all being said, if he doesn't go to Houston, there's almost no coach in the world that I can think of that prefers Fred VanVleet to James Harden. So that is a total fluke. And the fact that they listened to him, the fact that Raphael Stone and Tillman Fertitta, like two of the, one brown noser and the other one, the very middling guy, for them to listen to him and allow him, like, he had to be him to do that, because there aren't a lot of, if they had hired Darko Rakovic, there's no way he is telling them who to sign with their max money. Like, he wouldn't do it. I don't think he has the balls to do that. Ime does. And
Ime,
he was just like,
you're saying you for a fact Ime wanted Fred.
100%.
Okay,
he put the kibosh on this entire James Harden thing. He was just like, this is the exact opposite of the direction we're going as a franchise. We're trying to build accountability. We need Fred VanVleet. And he made it a mandate. Get me Fred VanVleet. So if he doesn't do that, what is the next offer for Fred?
But
who is offering $25 million for him? You would have gotten him on a bargain.
But here's my thing. Is $42 million a year
43
for a star in this climate, is that crazy? Like, if
extreme,
it's crazy. 42 for a star?
Is he a star?
No, but I'm saying just for a star.
Define the star. Who's the star? Devin Booker? No, it's not.
Yeah, it's Siakam for 50. Would you take it? 50 for 4 years. Would you take it?
So 200 million?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't.
45 for 4 years.
If I could front load it, and it was possible to front load it.
But this is all I'm saying. If he's not a star and he's on an expiring, and you've seen the way he's behaving leading up to the trade deadline, I mean, you must have balls of steel.
Yeah, but we saw how he was behaving. Maybe the Raptors didn't.
Really?
Like, and you
didn't
consider
see his media tours.
I mean,
the dynamic on the bench.
He did that after the trade deadline, though. He did the media tour after the trade deadline. You know that. And he also turned his season around after the trade deadline. Everyone wants to talk like
around. What do you mean around? Were we even winning that much more? Like, we were always a 500 team.
Right. We were a 500 team without a center. So they thought, we'll add a center and we'll be much better than a 500 team. And it didn't work out. Team. Yeah, we became a 500 team. But my point is, people look at Fred's numbers and they don't realize how bad a season he was having up until the trade deadline. Like, his numbers prior to, like, so when they could have traded him, like, all the value he added to himself, like, it's almost like, I mean, shit, like, did he do it on purpose? Like, it's kind of weird to me how the magic pill just kind of switched at the trade deadline, where he was just like, all right, 25, 30 games left in the season, I'm just going to be great now. And he was so much better, right? At the turn of basically around, like, I want to say it was around New Year's, a little bit after New Year's, he just became better. And his shot started to fall, and he was getting to the paint, and it was just like, whoa, where did this come from? I think it started with the Lakers game, where everyone missed.
But did it impact winning?
No, per analytics, yes, it did. But obviously, like, he did so much of his damage against terrible teams. And it's just like, I think he just became like, fuck this role that they're trying to put me into. Fuck, like, trying to figure out like how to work off of Scotty, whatever. I'm just going to do what I do best, and they're going to let me. And no one stopped him.
That playing game just epitomizes Fred's season.
No, I get it. But my point is, people want to look back and say, well, why didn't you move this guy? I don't think that they're necessarily fully appreciating how bad his value was at the trade deadline. Not only is he a rental, not only is he a guy who is quote unquote having like a bet on yourself season, not only is he like, I mean, he's having an abysmal shooting season. He wants to start. And you, as a franchise, I've already explored this many times. You don't want to send him to a situation where it's going to necessarily kill his trade value. I mean, this is how terrible franchises operate, right? So I think
You
there's
do everything
some
to help him. He doesn't do much to help you.
fine. But I mean, as we can agree now, he did a tremendous thing to help us now. He left. Like, I mean,
I get
you
it,
know,
but
he,
it's like it just kind of it rubs me the wrong way that with the way you're describing it, it's like Masai and the front office did their best by Fred, and Fred just took the season to do what's best for him, right? So it's like the team did what's best for him, and he did what's best for him. It's like did
yeah.
you know when what's that reporter Doug was like, oh, Fred did this all himself. He built it all himself. He deserves 100% of the credit to becoming the player he was. Like the Raptors organization, they didn't like it's not them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like how much did the Raptors help Pascal? Like would Pascal be an all NBA player if he was on 20 other different teams? Like what would he have been if he went to Sacramento or Charlotte?
I don't know. I mean, I
I
don't know
guarantee, I
what.
know he wouldn't be as good as he is now. Where would DeMar be if he was drafted by, Detroit, and he just rotted there?
I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to say who would be
It
what
is, but
with where, like, I mean, there's always this notion that the Raptors had like this incredible development thing, but like now I'm wondering like where would Scotty be if he'd been drafted by Golden State? I mean, Scotty
well,
was one of
yeah,
my
because
favorite players,
Lowry's
and
not
when
there
I
anymore.
was
DeMar's not there, so yeah, that I agree.
right, so it's like, you have that proper environment for growth, but then everything about Golden State being so great at developing people, why has Jonathan Kuminga and James Wiseman not developed, right? So
I don't want Siakam on the team on an expiring because now he's going on it's now bet on yourself on steroids.
again, it's really difficult to do that as one person without anyone to enable you.
Why
Like,
would he have loyalty to this team after this summer?
doesn't have to have loyalty to the
No, I'm
team
just saying.
necessarily, but like, I mean, what advantage does it serve for him to go against the team? Like, you know what I mean?
I'm not
Like,
saying overtly go against the team. Was Fred overtly going against the team?
I don't think he's selfish. Like, does that make sense? Like, I mean, I don't doubt that he will definitely try to make All NBA or whatever. There's a lot of people trying to make All NBA. I mean, it's not like Scotty didn't try to win Rookie of the Year. He just had a sense of maturity about how he went about doing it, and he didn't stat pad. But like, I think there's this knucklehead rule. I think Jerry West talked about it. Someone talked about it at some point. You can't have two knuckleheads in a locker room, otherwise they get together and then they sort of
Okay,
populate
so
with their ideas.
one knucklehead.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not. I feel weird calling Pascal SIakam
No, I'm not
knucklehead. He's
saying
not a
it's him.
knucklehead, but like, I mean, he becomes severely outnumbered if you take Fred out of the equation and Nurse out of the equation. The total enabling goes away, right? So I think that if you're the Raptors, you try to extend them. If you can't extend them, you trade them. It is a very simple equation. The lack of simplicity of this, of course, is the Raptors are going to get roasted because he's going to have a crazy year. Like, I feel it in my gut that this guy is going to go out and like beast next year. Now, will that be sustained beyond next year? I don't think so.
No.
But I think next year is going to be a career year for him. I'm feeling it.
I think he might start off hot and then flame out by February.
That could happen, and
Which normally does happen.
injuries could play a part in it. But for a couple of months, it's going to look really bad.
Yeah.
If you trade him, he's going to average like 28 points per game. And playing with Trey, I mean, if he goes to Atlanta, playing with Trey Young and DeJounte Murray, like, he's never had two guards that dynamic in his life to play with. Playing with those two guys, if they're actually willing to give him the ball and let him cook the way, like, I mean, if he gets some of those, I mean, Onyeka Okongwu can clean up so much shit for him. Bogdanovich out there like shooting threes. Oh my God. Like, I mean, this has the potential to look really bad for the Toronto Raptors for a couple of months. You have to weigh this out. But this is where, like, earlier you said, like, what has Masai done or whatever? Fired Nick Nurse, man. Like, I think that's such a courageous move.
But it took, he did it after it was obvious. It wasn't courageous. It would have been courageous mid-season, not in the summer.
Firing
the summer was
obvious. What does it accomplish firing a coach like that mid-season?
I don't know. To make a point that this is unacceptable.
I think the point was
made. I'm saying you could have salvaged the season if you were going to try to salvage, like the Jakob Poeltl trade. I think would have made more sense if he would have just fired the coach and said, "This is not how we play."
But I mean, implementing a new offense. I mean, you're not.
It would have been better than what we were doing.
We don't know
in
that.
In hindsight, it would have been better.
I mean, it would have alleviated some tension by creating more tension. I mean, Gary Trent Sr., he was on the Will Lou podcast, and he talked about, like, at the trade deadline, they had 9 guys on the block. 9, apparently. I'm struggling to figure out who those 9 players are. I really am. Fred, Pascal, OG. Oh my God. Like, you gotta see this, bro. Like, man, it's tough to fire a championship head coach that you've won a championship with, who's been with your program for 10 years. You have a personal relationship with this guy.
I get that. But the way that dude was behaving.
But the way he was behaving was a result of the conversations that were happening behind closed doors. Apparently, Masai Ujiri has yelled at people. He has cautioned people, stop playing selfishly. We're going to fucking trade you. Like, that is important. How many ships sink before the captain yells panic? Like, how many? Like, this ship did not sink. You can consider it a failure. It didn't make the playoffs, fine. But I don't think it's sunk. Like, what sunk is, like, you trading 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert and compromising the next 8 years of your life. The Raptors have, in the historical context of the NBA, in terms of team building, this is probably one of the 5 to 7 greatest examples of team building I have ever seen in the last 25 to 30 years in the NBA. Others that come to mind, Jerry Krause with the Chicago Bulls, Jack McCluskey, what they did with Golden State Warriors, assembling that core, the early days of Sam Presti and OKC, Masai Ujiri with the Toronto Raptors. It is really rare. I mean, you consider there are 30 teams in the NBA, right? How many of them get it wrong all the fucking time? Like, the Raptors were the second winningest team for the first 10 years of Masai Ujiri's career in Toronto, second or third winningest team in the NBA. I mean, this is not a height that the Raptors as a franchise or Toronto sports teams have ever flown at in my lifetime. So it is important, of course, what you're saying, that we must evaluate and say, hey, like, Masai, like, what the fuck, like, this is not what you did earlier on. But viewing it over the broader sense of, like, what has really changed, right? Like, what has really changed? He's someone who doesn't mortgage the future too far ahead, right?
Yeah.
He's someone who maintains flexibility.
Has his strategy really changed, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Like, strategy hasn't changed at all. The results have changed. He took a flyer on Precious Achiuwa the same way he took a flyer on Norman Powell. One of them worked, one of them didn't so far, right? And we also haven't seen the fruits of that labor. We haven't seen, like, what this can be. And I understand this is almost like coming at this from the eternally optimistic perspective. And maybe some people are looking at that and saying, Christian, I'm going to get to you right now in like 2 minutes. I'm just going to close this call off. But so hang tight. But yeah, like, I fully understand, like, where someone might say, like, this is a little too rosy-eyed and too optimistic on the Raptors, Rob. Like, you have to be real about the Jakob trade was not a good idea. I acknowledge all of that. Obviously, I blasted this front office for all of those things. I just think that as I watch other teams work, there's very few examples of other general managers or other presidents where I'm like, oh, I'd much rather have that person making decisions for this front office. Like, there's maybe 2.
Last thing, I remember I was arguing with somebody the other day. They were like, oh, the spacing is going to be bad because Fred left. And I'm like, if you just replace Gary with Fred in the starting lineup, right? In place of Fred, put Gary in. Gary off ball is better as a 5-man unit than Fred on ball.
Yeah, he's also
much better for the team dynamic, because I mean, I checked the numbers. The last 2 years, Gary's been a better from the field percentage-wise and from 3 percentage-wise. He's a better
Yeah.
isolation scorer. He's better finishing at the rim. He's been more clutch the last couple of years. He has more size. I mean,
Yeah.
if Fred were to play off
He's
ball,
just a
he's
worse
better than
defender.
Gary. He's better than Gary. But
The only differentiating factor here is that Fred's a better creator,
he
smarter
is.
player, and a much, much better defender.
But
But
the
with
role
the
he
defense
insisted
slipping,
on playing, Gary's better.
also, you are talking about someone who was 23 and 24 during that span that the other player was 28 and 29. Worth noting that Gary did this on the upswing of his career while Fred was doing it in his prime. So it is worth noting that Gary is probably a little bit underrated. But yeah, I watched a lot of Memphis tape to kind of try to understand like how the Raptors might employ some of their non-shooters. And I've walked away thinking like if Darko was the architect behind some of those actions, then the Raptors are going to be fine. Yeah. Anyways, Coach Mo, always a pleasure, man.
Yeah. Take it
Cheers.
easy.
All right. Christian, man, what's going on?
Not bad. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Long time no talk.
I know it's been a minute. I guess I just decided to call in, I guess, to add a different perspective to the conversation, I guess, in regards to the whole Pascal situation. I think my personal opinion, I think they're going to offer him an extension, like right before training camp, like they did Fred. Depending if he takes it or not, that's up to him. But seeing that like the last 2 years he's missed quite a few games, I think he would take it. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
In regards to him, like betting on himself to make All NBA, I don't see any way that he makes All NBA without the team winning like minimum 47 games.
I don't think the cutoff will be that high. I think if he plays 70 games at an all-star level and the Raptors massively overachieve, then his numbers are going to be solid, right? In this offense, like with shooters and movement and spacing, a player like this could really thrive. So his numbers could be anywhere up to like 27 points per game. Obviously, the way ESPN works and Sports Writers works, he will be seen as the reason for the triumph because he'll have the highest scoring. So
I don't see his numbers, like scoring-wise, I don't see his numbers being better than last year. Just with the whole how this team's being built so far and like I guess OG and Scotty getting bigger roles. I just don't see him scoring more than 24 points a game next year. So
but I mean, he definitely could. I mean, Jakob, you take Fred out of the equation, that's a lot of shots that open up. Scotty's definitely going to find you for like every player in the starting lineup, with the exception of Gary Trent Jr., is an above average to average passer, with Scotty being a great passer. And I think Jakob being one of the best center passers in the NBA. They're both going to be looking for him all the time. And if he can get off the ball, he'll become more efficient. It doesn't even matter that he scored 24 or 25 points per game. I think he'll just be more efficient. So instead of 57% true shooting, maybe he's at 59 to 60. I think that's going to matter. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to matter. And I think if team success, like if you are able to win, like let me play this out for you. Let's say at the end of the season, we're looking at the Raptors 42 wins. So that's one more win than they had last year. It doesn't matter. They make the play in playoffs, whatever. They have one more win than last year. So that's the story. So you lost a max guy, an all-star, and you won one more game. Obviously, someone's going to get credit for that. So maybe Scotty will get some MIP buzz. If Cade doesn't go completely berserk in Detroit, I think that's his award to win. And I think Pascal is going to get a lot of credit.
I don't think that's a big enough story because, we're a 500. We're like a 500 team this year, and he put up 24, 7, 8. Only 2 other players did that this year.
Sure.
And no recognition whatsoever. So I feel like winning is going to be a big factor in it. I don't see it happening unless if this team wins 45 plus games for him.
How many wins do you think the Raptors were expected to win last year? Like 45, right?
Like my personal opinion, nationally,
nationally, 42, 45, around there.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So they underperformed, and I think that was prior to getting Jakob Poeltl. So with Jakob Poeltl, I think they were expected to win 48. Like they should have been on pace for 48 to 50 wins. Mm-hmm. And I think when you underperform expectations, people blame. When you overperform expectations, people tend to add credit. So that being said, Obviously, Jalen Brunson's getting a lot of credit for things that have turned around in New York, right? Naturally, he's the variable that switched. And I think that Darko Rajakovic and Pascal SIakam get a lot of credit because I think right now most national media outlets are predicting the Raptors to finish around 28 to 30 wins. So if they end up at 42 wins, that's plus 12. That's a lot. Like you're beating Vegas estimates by a significant amount. I was doing the math on Vegas. They expect the Raptors to finish 10th or 11th in the East. So if you finish 8th, that's massive success. Especially,
I don't know. It is massive success. I just don't think
it has to get to 47 wins. Is my point. Like I don't think it has to get that high. I mean, you look at the people who were all NBA this year. They weren't on. All of them weren't on 47 win teams.
They weren't, but like all those guys have like more cachet than Pascal.
Bro,
like,
he's made all NBA twice.
I know, but all those were really good years too.
I think it's just the Raptors, like when all the talk about the vibe around the team, whatever, they also played a very ugly brand of basketball. They missed a lot of shots. It just wasn't nice. It wasn't good to watch, right? Okay. The way the Kings were last year, the whole light the beam, the momentum, everything, the energy around the team. Mm-hmm. So naturally, like people talked up Keegan Murray a lot, De'Aaron Fox a lot, Domantas Sabonis a lot, right? Now, do I really think that Domantas Sabonis is a better player than Pascal SIakam? Like legit? No, I don't. I don't. I don't give a fuck. Like I'll fight anyone on it. Like I don't get it. Like personally. So, but he's like a top 15 player for some people out there, right? And I'm just like, okay, like if he's top 15, what is Siakam, right? This is where I get a little bit confused about this. But I think he's top 15 now because the story around the Kings was so positive. Story wasn't so positive around the Raptors last year. So the story was negative. It's different. The story will be positive next year, regardless of whether Pascal is here or not. I'm very convinced the Raptors will have a positive season.
That kind of proves my point, because what was the big difference? How many games did they win this year? Like 48?
The Kings?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're the Kings. Number one, that's the story. They're the Kings. Like it doesn't matter if they win 45 games, making the playoffs easily right away. Number one, making the playoffs. Number two, just the concept of how beautiful their basketball was to watch relative to the previous year. And obviously, Domantas Sabonis and Mike Brown were seen as the big additions, and Keegan Murray. Like those were the three guys. Kevin Huerter, kind of gets lost in the shuffle there. Jordi Fernandez. All of these people came in, they changed the culture, like the beam. They're given credit for it. So Darko Rajakovic and Pascal buying into a new role, I think we'll get a lot of credit. Unless, the credit will go to, I don't know, a surprise Grady Dick performance where he averages 15 points per game off the bench. I have no idea. But someone's going to get credit for a positive season, and it's going to be rewarded in the awards, I think. So I'm just saying, I think he was fringy All-NBA this year. Like, I think he was probably like, if you had an All-NBA fourth team, I think he would have been on it. So he's not that far off.
Yeah, I just think that winning would have to be a big component of it. And
also worth noting, the 65 game cutoff starts next year. So there's a very good chance that guys like LeBron James, Anthony Davis, guys who are prone to missing a lot of time.
That's a good point.
They could miss the cutoff and they wouldn't even be eligible.
Right? Or no, that starts this year. Yeah, that starts this year.
It does start this year. Yeah. So that's going to drastically change the voting. If someone like Shea, who's having like a historic year, just misses like a month, Ja Morant is not eligible immediately because he's missing 25 games right off the bat, right? So he loses his All-NBA eligibility. So it's like there's so many situations like this. Like, I mean, look at someone like Joel Embiid. Like, what if he has like a month off? Like that's a month off and all his little rest games. And there's so many guys who've made the cutoff. Kevin Durant is not exactly a beacon of durability either. Guys like Steph, I mean, you don't know. Like, I mean, there's so many things that can happen, but I'm just saying, like, there are very few players in the NBA of his talent level who have as much riding next season. You know what I mean? Like this All NBA thing, it means something to him. Yeah, it's a massive difference in price. Now, if the Raptors kind of just let him know right now, regardless of whether you qualify for or not, we're not paying you it. Like, we just don't believe that you're that type of player. But I wonder if the Raptors are willing to even say that. Like, I think the Raptors have historically proven to be more of a show us what you're worth type of team,
Well, for sure. And I don't I don't think it's a bad thing that he wants to be all NBA. Like I think it's a good
I
thing.
don't think it's bad. I wonder how you do it. Like just like I don't think it's bad to want to be a millionaire. But if you're going to be a billionaire by committing crimes and defrauding people out of money, well then maybe that's bad. Like so it's like to me last year was very blatantly obvious that Fred VanVleet hijacked the offense in order to gun for his numbers because he needed his numbers to look a certain way for free agency. And to me, it was very obvious watching it. And I think it was obvious to a lot of people watching it, but that was wrong. It's nothing wrong with wanting to get paid. It's completely wrong to hijack a team game or a team offense in order to get paid. That's different. So if Siakam puts in the work, and I mean, he clearly is, right? I love that. I love that quote on Instagram from him. Stop playing piano with your life. That made me laugh.
I agree with the whole like Fred. He definitely did hijack the offense, but like that's why I like the whole Fred and Pascal comparable, just because like obviously Pascal's way more talented and skilled than Fred could ever wish to be. So like he doesn't need to hijack the offense technically to.
He's going to be the first option. He's going to be the first option. There's nothing to hijack, right? Like, I mean, like honestly, like, I mean, the only thing that the Raptors should be focused on right now is how to make that offense efficient and to get him easier looks. And getting easier looks simply will come down to moving off the basketball. Like Ja Morant got off the basketball a lot last year in order to get more efficient looks. Desmond Bane got off the basketball. Jaren Jackson got off the basketball. Like, I mean, this is just how Darko Rajakovic is going to coach this team. He's not going to, what's he going to do? Like, just throw a tantrum and, just say, I know you're the coach, but fuck you anyway. Like, it's just not,
he's not that type of
doesn't
guy.
seem like it's not exactly. It doesn't seem like it's his personality either. So, again, like it takes two to tango when it comes to hijacking offenses. You need one person willing to do it. You need another person willing to let it happen. Right. It's like, I don't know. Like if I'm playing point, and I just want to take shots, like at some point my teammates will call me out on it. Like they have to let me do that. You know what I mean? So last year, like Fred VanVleet, even in the Pivot podcast, he said, well, no one talked to me about it, about the selfishness and, all that stuff. And that to me is like, that's a problem. Someone should have, but they didn't because he was a leader, right? Whereas now it's like with a personality like Siakam's, I don't think it's necessarily as easy for him to manipulate others the way that Fred did,
if the coach is enabling the whole thing, right? So the coach,
exactly. I mean, everything out of Nick Nurse's mouth was about getting people paid. Everything. Like I've gone back and listened to interviews, and I'm just like, my God, like this is evident even 5 years ago.
Oh yeah,
I was listening to this guy talk about this. Anyway, any final thoughts?
I'm looking forward to the season actually with this current roster as it is constructed. I think it could surprise people. What do you think? What do you think the rotation would be with the roster currently constructed at the moment? I'll say mine, and then like I guess you could give yours right after. So obviously we have the starting five. We have starting five of Scotty, Gary, OG, Pascal, and Pirtle. Sixth man we have Dennis. Yes. Seventh man we have, if he stays healthy, Otter. And then third, as the eighth man, Precious. And then you throw Grady in there as the ninth man. And then if you're wanting to go 10 deep, maybe sometimes Koloko, or actually no, probably I'd probably put McDaniels just for the. I think he's gonna shoot the ball well.
Did I read a rumor that he's now 6'11"?
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise. Him and his brother are like really long, so like, and how old is he? So maybe
22, 23.
So maybe he could be still growing. So
that's crazy.
I just don't know where Chris Boucher fits on this roster anymore.
That is a worthwhile point, and also there's no chance in hell he's outside the rotation. So yeah, the Raptors have a really good problem, which is they could actually go 11 deep comfortably. Honestly, my rotation is very similar to yours. I don't really sense any disagreement. Dennis Schroeder, Schroeder. I don't know how he said his name. I'm not German. I don't speak German, but Okay, Dennis Schroeder, Otto Porter. Precious.
It has
Yeah.
to be Precious. It has to be Precious. It's a big year for him. It has to
I
be.
mean, it's a big year for him, but also you're paying Chris Boucher $12 million a year. You're paying Thaddeus Young $8 million a year. These guys are just like,
Thaddeus isn't playing. We know Thaddeus not playing. He
I mean,
barely played last year.
just because the previous coach didn't use him. I mean, he did start a handful of games for you before getting all those DMP CDs because he just didn't fit in. And I understand that why he wouldn't play because he doesn't shoot very well. But then, how are you playing Precious Achua? I mean, Precious can at least shoot a little bit, but I mean, Thaddeus Young can shoot as well as Precious. I mean, he's had a really good year or a couple of good years from three. His career average, I'm pretty sure, is just as good, if not higher, than Precious Achua's or close from three. I don't know, man. I think the Raptors have a really good problem, which is that they have a couple of small forwards or a couple of versatile forwards in Otto and OG who have durability issues historically.
I really hope Otto is healthy.
Me too.
Such a big.
If he stays healthy, I think people in Toronto are going to owe a lot of apologies, man. I can't listen to people talk about Otto Porter without them clowning him, and I know where it all comes from, and it's coming from the same fucking one person, and it pisses me off because it's like acting like the dude had some control over this, or like he's just intentionally getting injured. Like where are we as a fan base when you're trying to make fun of someone for being injured? Like he's a really good player, a really good person. I don't get it, but whatever. Yeah, so I don't know. I think the Raptors could go 10 deep. The Memphis teams were notorious for going pretty deep into the bench. So maybe they'll do that. Maybe they'll just be really active and fast. And Darko is all about pace and space. So yeah, pace is exhausting. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have the option of, and maybe sometimes it will change based on matchups. Maybe Christian Koloko one night, Chris Boucher the other night, but I would like to see Christian Koloko get a consistent time. Also, I think worth noting is Jakob Poeltl. It may be a starter, but I don't think he's going to play starter minutes. Like I think he'll be like a 24 to 28 minute per game guy, as opposed to like a 35 to 37 minute per game guy. And I think that little bit of extra room does open up space for Precious and Christian Koloko to get some minutes at the five.
I agree with that. I think he's more like a 28 to 30 minute guy. Definitely. I don't think
you can't close games with him. He's a really bad free throw shooter. The Raptors opted to keep him on the bench a lot. So I think I
don't think it's going to be like Jonas Valanciunas type bad, because Jonas was averaging like 24 minutes those seasons.
Jonas was a good free throw shooter.
I know, but like what I mean is that like he wouldn't close games like majority.
I think it'll depend on how good Koloko can be, man, because I think Koloko is just, I mean, he's so not that far away from being as good as Jakob Poeltl, man. I mean, he is in a way, yes, but as a prospect, like if I judge them both at the same age, to me, they're not that far off from each other, and the upside on Koloko is higher for me. And I'm not just saying that because he's 22 and Jakob is 27. I'm not. I'm just saying like his athletic profile, his shooting touch, the fact that he at least has shown capably, that he can hit a mid-range jumper, like he has something. I'm convinced of it. And
he has a long way to go with his touch, honestly.
But I mean, he's working on it this offseason, and I wonder how much of his touch was just him getting bumped off his space because he was so weak last year. I mean, he was so skinny. Like so insanely skinny, right? And if I could think of like any rookie that was going to struggle, it was going to be the super skinny 7'1" guy who started playing basketball at 16. Like that sounds like a hallmark to struggle a lot as a rookie. And he didn't struggle that much. He started a handful of games. He played against starters. Like those analytics that I flashed a couple of lives ago where he was just beastly. Bro, like that, a lot of those minutes he came against starting level players. Like that's crazy. So I think he's going to be really good. I would hate in a development year that he would be outside the rotation. I would boycott this team. I would boycott this team, but I'd be really pissed off. Yeah. Anyways, man, take care.
All right. Take care.
Have a good one. Peace. All right. Final caller, FA. What's going on, man? Hello.
Hey, man. What's going on?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Yeah. I was just listening to Coach Mo earlier and talking about Pascal. that Pascal is not with the team. I think Pascal is in Austria. Last I checked, well, Pascal, I think the one of the coaches is with him in Austria, and
That coach is no longer working for the Raptors.
oh, really?
They fired him.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure because he was with us like last year. I forget his name right now off the top of my head. I can't remember his name, but yes, he definitely has been replaced. Like I don't think he's not among Darko's coaching staff that much. I'm sure. Like this is Darko's coaching staff, and he's not on it. Wait, he is on it. Never mind. What? He's the guy in the Toronto. He's the only guy who's been retained.
Yeah, I know they retained one. Yeah.
Oh shit, he is retained.
Yeah.
Does anyone in the comments can let me know his name? The guy in the Toronto Raptors basketball, like right at the bottom right. Can
Yeah,
someone
he was retained. I know that for sure. So, but I don't know his name. But also, when they drafted Grady Dick, right? He met Pascal and OG at the Raptors, so they were around. So it's not like he's not been with the team, like Coach Mo was saying. Then I know you also asked about this guy. He's grown to 6'9", 6'11". Sorry. What's his name again? Jalen
McDaniels.
Jalen McDaniels. Yeah, he's grown to 6'11".
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a game changer for a shooter who's a versatile wing. To be 6'11" is pretty awesome. Like that's pretty much, yeah, that's amazing.
And I agree with you that we're going to surprise a lot of people, right? But the question of Pascal still looms. I don't think you're going to trade. I'd rather keep him to the trade deadline than to trade him for what Atlanta is proposing. Because, yeah, like
I like AJ Griffin a lot. And
I like AJ Griffin, but that's the other person I like on the trade only.
Okay, so here's my question. Okay, the Raptors, like for Raptor fans out there, would you trade? Like, let's just say hypothetically that the Raptors had drafted Kobe Buffkin and the Hawks had drafted Grady Dick. Now, everything we know about Grady Dick, about Grady Dick now, right? Would you trade Pascal Siakam for Grady Dick and DeAndre Hunter?
No.
You wouldn't?
No.
Okay.
No way.
Would you? Okay, here's a question I think worth asking. Would you trade Grady Dick for AJ Griffin? 1-for-1 right now. Good. Yeah, I'm glad you paused on that because that's my point. Like he is really good. Like for people who are just looking at his raw box score, like you didn't watch him play. I watched him play at Duke. This guy's really good. So
yeah, I love him at Duke. I live right around the corner from Duke, right? I love his game, right? But Pascal is a two-time All-Star, two-time All-NBA, right? So look at what this guy just got. I know you talk about age, right? The Boston guy. We talk about age and things like that, but I'm not going to give Pascal I'm not going to sell that low. I know they should have traded him last season, right? Like last offseason, not this offseason. But right. That said, I've been watching Pascal all summer, the way he's working out, right? He's going to, under Coach Darko, I think he's going to really, really do well. So his value is going to go high, and you might go really high maybe at the beginning of the season that you don't even need to wait till the trade deadline to trade him if it doesn't extend. But I agree with you. Toronto needs to try and extend it. But after the contract that this guy got, I don't know if he wants to extend or if he's going to bet on himself like Van Vliet.
I think he will definitely bet on himself like Van Vliet. And, I think all of this work is for that. And I think he's going to have a really great season, regardless of who he plays with and who he play for. The problem,
the problem with bet on himself is not selfish play, right? You want to get your numbers up to make all NBA. So we're dealing with the same thing.
There's a way to do it. Like obviously Darko can kind of tell him like, listen, man, you want all NBA, we want all NBA for you. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to be a really good team. We got to get 45 wins. If we can get to 45 wins, we'll get you easy numbers. We'll let you beast a couple of nights. We'll let you put up 50 against Charlotte. We'll let you put up, 45 against the Wizards, whatever. We'll give you a couple of those games and, everyone will just grin and bear it. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think that it doesn't really matter how good he is. It matters, number one, how he fits on the team that wants him. Number two, what can they give without gutting their team to actually get him?
He's gonna
And
fit. He's gonna fit in Atlanta really well. I don't know why they're not giving more than what they're giving. So, and Atlanta should know that they're likely gonna be able to keep him because not everybody's gonna have that much money to pay him.
he's
Van
going to be
Vliet,
the best. He could easily be the best free agent next year.
yeah, but how many people have the money to pay him? A lot of teams don't have the money. Van Vliet just locked out
That's
with him.
fair, but I mean that changes. That's fluid, right? Like a team could see the situation coming, and at the date that at the trade deadline, like the last minute of the trade deadline, they could make a cap clearing move where they add a first round pick to get off a contract, and then boom, they open up salary. It's
And
not
then
going to be that difficult.
at that point, you blow it up. You trade Pascal for whatever you get. You take the risk at that point. Just do it.
But I don't think AJ Griffin and first round picks is going to be on the table at that point.
Like you said, I don't want the first round pick because in Sacramento pick, they're not going. This draft, the next draft is going to be really awful, right? And their pick is going to be low because they're going to do well in the West. So you're literally only getting Adrian Griffin, and it's like Adrian Griffin and Pascal one-on-one trade. I'm not going to do that. No way. Is he going to be really good? Yes, but Pascal is at a different level right now in terms of winning
Yeah,
basketball.
he's also 10 years older than him. That's worth
And
noting. Like 10 years, bro. And I mean, like, I'm being serious. Like, I can make a very solid argument that AJ Griffin right now is a way better shooter than Pascal Siakam. And you need shooting desperately on this team. And he's 10 years younger. Like, this is not nothing. Like, this is like, I have a feeling that this guy will be talked about so differently if he went top 6 like he should have. Like, he definitely, in my opinion, should have gone top 8. There was a lot of concerns about his injury. And, it's the same thing as the OG Anunoby thing for me. When OG was a rookie, he was a 23rd overall pick or whatever he was. And people just kind of underrated him. They kind of looked at him differently. And it took a couple of years before people started to rate him properly. If AJ Griffin comes out next year, right? Like, here's the other thing of this that I think is a little bit underrated. Right now, you're betting a little bit on upside, and you're betting on, the fact that AJ Griffin is ready to take a massive step. A lot of players do take that step in year 2. Some of them take it in year 3, but at some point in the first 3 years of a prospect, you get a different window into what type of prospect they could be. So let's say right now that you really do believe in AJ Griffin, and I have no reason to believe the Raptors don't. What if he comes out guns blazing next year? What if he comes out and averages like 15, 17 points per game? Then he becomes a starting small forward. Well, now he's not even gettable. So now, I mean, like, there is the element of trading for a guy in the summer is you are betting on that player potentially being able to pop, And it's like, if you do this mid-season, they already see what all this work is. Like, there's a little bit of a Kinder Egg situation here, where it's like, you don't know what this guy could be. And I mean, conversely for the Hawks, they're betting on him being good. What if he comes out and he struggles really hard and he has like a terrible 2 months to start the season? Well, now maybe the Raptors don't want him. So maybe his trade value goes down. So I think, you play the asset management game a little bit. You don't have leverage if you're the Raptors. That's the problem.
they don't have leverage.
You can keep telling people like, yeah, we'll wait. We don't like this offer. We don't like this offer. At some point, the teams are going to realize you don't have other options here. Either you are going to extend this guy. And I mean, I think it's worth noting also when the TV money comes in that $45 to $50 million is not going to be a massive deal for Pascal Siakam.
But is he going to take it? That's a question.
Yeah. I mean, that's worth noting. I mean, would he be so sour that if he made All NBA, you don't offer him the Supermax and then boom? Like, I'm just saying right now, if the Raptors sign him to a Supermax, like, that would be the worst contract they'll ever hand out ever. But if they sign him to a max contract, I think they can move that deal within the first year. I think it'll be.
With the report out today that they've not offered him a max contract, why do you think they're not even offering him that contract?
I mean, again, it's as I said with Coach Mo, there's what's reported and then there's what's the truth. I mean, there's a report that they haven't offered him a contract, and they haven't necessarily come out and said, oh, we did offer him a contract and he declined it. But how do we know that that's not the case? Everything that I've heard from him suggests that he believes he's like an all NBA guy. He thinks top 5. Why would a top 5 player take $100 million less than Jaylen Brown just signed? Doesn't make sense to me. So to me,
because anything can happen, injuries and stuff like that, right?
So if he gets injured, he's not going to be a max player.
Depends on the injury.
That's fair. That's
Because
fair.
if he gets injured, there's not going to be all NBA. So
No,
regardless, he's gonna.
that is fair. But
Mhm.
if he just has a groin strain or a pulled ankle, or like he pulls his hamstring or something like that, I think he's still a max player. Someone's still going to see him as a max player.
Anthony Davis taking out the extension he can take now because he's injury prone. Right? He doesn't want to take any chances, so something like that. And that might be the same situation with OG too, right? Because they say OG is going to need something up of 30 million a year, but they can extend it to 117 for 4, right? So it's not up to 30, but it's close. So someone like OG with all his injury history, do you want to risk it or you just want to do it now?
Mhm.
And
I don't know.
speaking of this guy, Dennis Schroeder, I think he's dealing with Achilles injury. Hmm?
What?
Achilles is Achilles soreness. Dennis Schroeder.
Oh
So
boy.
it might affect his playing for the German national team.
Are they shutting him down?
I don't know. I just dropped the link on the chat. You can.
Wow.
Mhm. So
That would
there,
suck.
there goes your point guard.
I mean, we have a point guard. Scotty's our
Yeah,
point guard.
that's where I'm going with that. That's where I'm going with that. When I say that, yeah, that's where we have our point guard.
I'm not seeing the live. Sorry, I'm not seeing the link. Maybe it got blocked because
I
of
put it on. I
the
put it on.
private chat. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
because I'm in the.
Shoot, man, that sucks.
That sucks.
It's
Yeah.
not 100% with several weeks to go until the World Cup as he deals with issues stemming from an Achilles injury.
Mm-hmm.
Injury issues. That's not an Achilles injury soreness. That's an Achilles injury.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that you just resting for the Raptors.
Wait, what? Injury issues. I mean, that's such a strange way to word it.
Mm-hmm.
Achilles injury. It's not soreness. Injury is a very
Maybe it's dealing with like something like what Chris Bosh did to it, where you have to rest it for some time, right? So, and I don't know.
I mean, I would hope that they don't mean Achilles tear.
Mm-hmm.
That would suck. I mean, yeah, you need him. Like you need him so badly.
We need him. Yeah, yeah. We need somebody to back up Scotty.
I mean, it's that, but it's also his point of attack defense, his ability to get
What
to the
about this
line,
guy?
his ability to like just lead
Freedom,
in a way.
Freedom Liberty.
Yeah. No, he takes a lot of pressure off of this team, and like, man, that would suck. Anyways, any final thoughts, man?
No, we're just gonna keep waiting for the season. Can't wait. As Scotty tweeted today, is it Twitter or Instagram that I can't wait for the season to start? Then Gary Trent Jr. liked it. Yeah, can't wait too. I think those two they're gonna build a good bond this year.
Yeah, I think there's a really positive energy around this team right now, and I'm like, really happy about it. And I really hope that nothing that happens with Pascal Siakam disrupts that. So, like, I just want the positive energy to stay positive, right? You don't want a situation where the guy who's taking all the shots is kind of like warring with half the team, because that's going to show up in how you're playing. And you definitely don't want disagreements with a coach where your franchise player and your coach are on different pages. Like, you don't want a distraction. I also don't think it's necessarily fair to Darko and his staff to put that on them in their first year, because they're already managing a lot. So if Pascal Siakam is going to be a distraction, like if he's going to, and I'm not suggesting he's like a problem, character wise, he's always been solid. But I'm saying if that is going to be a distraction all year long, like will he sign, whatever. I understand doing that for Kawhi. I'm not doing that for Pascal Siakam. Like I would rather just clean slate. Okay, yeah, you lose a little bit. Sometimes it's okay to take a 20% hit. It's okay. You know what I mean?
I agree. Like the interview you posted, thanks for doing that. Great job, by the way. Yeah, you put the subtitle. Great job. You can tell that Darko danced around when they started asking about Pascal. He danced around it and just thought, I'm going to push whoever is here for me. So it's obvious that there's something in the air with Pascal, but nobody just knows what's going to happen. But I'm surprised that apart from Atlanta, no other team has tried to trade for Pascal. Because
I think
honestly
they have.
speaking,
I think they
okay,
have.
possibly
Yeah.
Indiana, right? Indiana.
That's one of them.
And I think Pascal would be good with Golden State. Just put it out there. But I don't know if they have.
I think he would be interesting in OKC. I think he could be really interesting in Memphis potentially. I think the question then becomes, what are these teams supposed to give for him?
Yes.
And then that's where the conversation just ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if a team wanted to give up 3 first-round picks and fillers, right? Like if they're a team that you expect to be bad over the duration of those picks, like do you value those 3 picks over an AJ Griffin package? I don't know. Do you value three picks and expirings more than AJ Griffin and DeAndre Hunter's terrible contract? Not terrible contract, bad contract.
I think Indiana they were refusing to put their point guard, right? The guy that was picked before Koloko, was whatever his name is, a Canadian boy.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. Andrew Nembhard, like they wouldn't trade Andrew Nembhard for Pascal Siakam. Like this is the problem. Like it's like a broken telephone. Someone says it, someone retweets it, someone reshares it, someone hears it, and then it's gospel. But it's like, but it's like, how do we know? No one was here. No one was there. Masai Ujiri is not leaking this out via his BlackBerry. So how do we know what they said, what didn't happen, what did happen? Like to this day, like there's like, oh, the Raptors could have traded Chris Bosh for this, and it's like, but no. And I only say this because there's so many times, not so many times, but there's like at least 2 times in my life where I've had a chance to talk to someone who would know something like this and been like, why didn't you do this? And they're just like, it was never offered. It was never offered. And it's just widely assumed that it was offered. So like there's like 2 realities, the reality that is and the reality that's reported. And I don't think that the reality that's reported is real. It's not real life. It's Twitter. Some of it I'm sure is true. This person didn't like this person. This person wanted out. This person, hated his coach. I'm sure some of that is true, but some of it is not. And it's difficult to So yeah. Anyways, man, thanks a lot for calling in. I appreciate it. Cheers.
All right, take it easy.
Yep.
Okay, bye.
Yep. Have a good one. Alrighty, y'all. Trying not to make these lives too long, but yeah, managed to keep the last couple under an hour, but obviously with the call-ins, these do go a little bit longer. I hope the discussion was meaningful to you. If it was super meaningful to you, be sure to share this video, subscribe if you haven't already. There's 182 people in here. And if you are optimistic about the Toronto Raptors season, please hit like on this video. It does help the algorithm out a lot. I gotta say, I am someone DM'd me the other day and they said, this is like the most positive Raptors channel now. And I don't know how the hell, like this is some bizarro world shit that's happening right now. Like everything coming out of your mouth is super positive. And it's funny because at the moment that I read that DM, I got a notification on a comment from like 4 months ago. And I shared this on Pensar Instagram where someone had said, man, literally devoted his entire channel to hating on the Raptors and hating on Fred VanVleet or something like that. And I wrote in the comment section right below, it was like, man, if he moves on, like you're going to see this channel completely shift back to, I'm not a negative person. I'm a positive person. I've said it all year. I am a positive person. I was a positive person observing a shitty situation that was very toxic, and it was very hard to care about the team and not call it out. But that being said, like the vibes are awesome. Like I'm looking at the Raptors story and I'm watching Thaddeus Young, old man Thad dunk, and Grady Dick passing him the ball, and Grady Dick and Caravana and OG Anunoby dancing at, Jawan Morgan's wedding as his best man or whatever is happening there. Scotty Barnes, like it's so awesome to see. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's just awesome to see the vibe around this team. It's great to see Darko interacting with his players, with his young players. It's great to see them engaged. It's so different, Catherine and I did that neuroscience video a few weeks back, and we posted it. And it's so different, in my opinion, when somebody is engaged, like fully engaged with what's happening and not. right? It's a completely different situation in terms of integration of new ideas, in terms of, like how much you're actually absorbing and how much you're actively engaging with the team concept and all of these things. And I think it makes a massive difference in terms of wins, losses, communication on the court, defensively, offensively, those bus rides, those plane rides, everything is awkward when things are awkward in the locker room. So, I just want to see it continue, and I don't see anything disrupted. No trade requests, no free agency drama, nothing. So I'm just rooting for the Raptors, obviously, and I just want to see this team succeed. I don't like leaving callers hanging who have managed to call in. So Mohammed, I apologize. It's going to have to be a very, very short call because I don't want this video to go past 1 hour 45. But Mohammed, what's up, man?
How's
it going?
Doing good. I was wondering, what's
your
Siakam?
audio is horrible. Can you please turn off your YouTube?
Just give me a second. Can you?
I'm gonna mute you until you can turn off your YouTube. You have to turn off your YouTube because I hear myself talking. You obviously don't have headphones on, so either get headphones or you have to turn off YouTube. Cool.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And he's gone. All right. A little bit anticlimactic. I hope that Mohammed can make it on for the next live. But yeah, drop me, and when this video goes live, drop a comment and let me know what you would want from the Atlanta Hawks for Pascal Siakam. Personally, if I'm just going to be on the record with this, I would prefer Kobe Buffkin, AJ Griffin, and I'd take DeAndre Hunter, but I would definitely prefer Bogdanovich. But yeah, that would be my take. But then, when Christian and I were talking about the rotation, we already went 11 deep to players that I like, and now we're going to have 2 more guys being added in. Oh, Mohammed is back. Mohammed, what's up? Did you fix it?
Yes, I did. How are you?
Perfect. That's great. What's going on?
So my issue with Siakam is I don't understand why the only team that Masai is looking at is Atlanta. One trade that I've looked at is. Oh, okay.
It's not the only team. That's just the only team that's leaking all their reports out. But I'm sure there are other teams.
Yeah, one team that I actually would like to send him to is to Charlotte. I looked at a trade send Siakam to Charlotte for Gordon Hayward, center Mark Williams, and maybe 2 or 3 first-round picks. Well, what do you think about that trade?
I like it. Actually,
yeah,
I like Mark Williams a lot. A little bit of a clunky fit. Mark Williams plus Christian Koloko plus Jakob Poeltl. Wow, massive overcorrection on not having a center for a few years. But I really like Mark Williams. I think he's incredible. Especially in the second half of last year, he was really good. Yeah, I mean, if we're looking in situations like that, why not Detroit?
Yeah, Detroit's a good pickup too.
If they would give Jalen Duren, they're desperate to be relevant around Cade, right? Would they give up Jalen Duren and stuff? That would be great. But then it's to me, it's I really do believe in Christian Koloko, but how much do I believe in him because he's a Raptor? How much would I believe in Jalen Duren if he was on the team? A lot. It's weird. I don't know. You necessarily don't want to put 2 people on the same team who are the same age and have the exact same role, because it's really difficult to play both of them and develop both of them at the same time. So yeah, Mark Williams is a little bit I like him a lot, but then what does that do for Jakob Poeltl and Christian Koloko? It's just weird because they can't play together. You never have a lineup with those guys on the court together, so one of them is always going to be off. 2 of them are going to be off, actually.
Yeah, Koloko. I like Mark Williams better than Koloko because Koloko actually has more muscle on him. Mark Williams has more muscle on him. Koloko really doesn't, and I feel like Mark Williams is better than Koloko. So unless they put Koloko in the deal with Siakam to send to Charlotte, who knows? That
would suck, and that would I think that would negate some of the value you're getting back from him. I would want to quickly look at the analytics for Mark Williams and just see how much the eye test deceived me there. But I think as a defender, I mean, he was significantly worse than Koloko, dude. He was yes, he's younger than Koloko, not by much, but he was significantly worse across the board. The only thing he did way better than Koloko was finish at the basket.
Yeah.
Like his
Another thing
versatility as a defender was way worse. Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk about is one of the assistant coaches on the Raptors. I don't know if he's still there yet. He's the one that used to coach the Phoenix Suns. On Wikipedia, it says he's still the assistant on the Raptors, but I don't know if he is.
You're talking about Earl Watson?
Yeah, Earl Watson. Is he still with
He
the
is
team
not.
or?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's all I want to talk about. I really like the show. Next time, hopefully, I could talk with you guys more about other Raptor discussions.
Cool. Thanks a lot for calling, man. Appreciate it.
All right, have a good day.
See ya. Yeah, I mean, Mark Williams is interesting. I prefer Jalen Duren. I think I prefer Christian Koloko over him. That's probably hot take territory for some people. I just think his switchability, there's just things that Christian Koloko does that just appeal to me as a basketball observer and someone who just really likes smart players who project well. I think he does some incredible things. Anyway, I'm getting laggy apparently. Cheers, y'all. Have a good one. And yeah, I'll see you probably at the end of this week. All right. Cheers. Oh, Rank Scrub, thank you so much for the super chat. Kind of a clutch super chat. It's very Scotty Barnes right in the fourth quarter. The biggest swing bet the Raptors could make is trying to get Zion plus assets for Pascal plus assets. That's not happening. Zion's trade value is, despite all of his stuff that's happened, I think in a completely different stratosphere than Pascal Siakam's, but that would be awesome. I think what would be, man, if Pascal and Zion could play together, I would love a package around CJ McCollum and their young players like Trey Murphy the third and Dyson Daniels. Let's revisit the whole Dyson Daniels hype train again. But yeah. Anyway, no, I definitely think. Sorry if I'm being very laggy here. I apologize. I'm like totally freezing on screen here. Let me make it less awkward. I hope y'all can still hear me. Thanks a lot, Sheridan Forbes. Appreciate it, man. My closing thoughts on this situation are that I want to be reminding you that just because you're hearing about it on Twitter and the Atlanta Hawks the only team doesn't mean that they're the only team that has called about Siakam, doesn't mean that they're the only team that they're talking to. You know what I mean? Like there's so much more in play. There's so many conversations that happen that are never leaked to the media, never reported on, whatever. There's conversations that, people who report on this team know about, but will never leak. Where was the Kawhi Leonard is going to the Raptors reporting widely? Like there were very few people who were even talking about that. So my point is like, it's not going to be obvious where Pascal Siakam is going to go until he goes there. And yeah, but I would like to see the situation resolved. And that's pretty much the premise of this channel at this point is I just want to see a great Raptors season. And if Pascal can be a part of it and long-term, then yeah, I think it could work. He's going to have to change the way he plays. I think Scotty's going to have to change the way he plays. Everyone's going to have to adjust to team basketball the way that Darko Rakovic wants to coach. But I tell you, like I alluded to it earlier, I watched the Memphis games from last year. I really studied their offense a little bit more because they play on the West Coast. I didn't catch a ton of, they didn't play on the West Coast. They play in the Western Conference. So I didn't catch a lot of their games last year. But it was interesting to watch how they deployed, Jaren Jackson Jr., how they used Brandon Clark and Steven Adams, at times. And again, like, I think the Raptors have some similar stuff on their roster to the Memphis Grizzlies. They don't have a Ja Morant, fine. They don't have a Jaren Jackson Jr., but there are some pieces that I think I could see working in a similar way. So yeah. Anyways, cheers, guys. Have a good one and peace.